Join us as we search Alaska and beyond for mysterious creatures, featuring Beans Baxter and Rob Roy Menzies. This is the Alaska Bigfoot Studies. Let's just start it. I'm going to sit next to you. We'll both be on the deal here. Oh wow, joint base, Pearl Harbor, reckon? Very nice.
My dad, the same dad I'm talking about, that did battle with that guy.
Yeah.
He was at Pearl when they bombed it.
Oh wow. Oh no, I'll set up the automatic thing. There we go.
You got
And
permission, or they just closed the thing just because?
Yeah, where it'll shut off after a while. But
No, I'm talking about the restaurant guy.
Oh, okay.
They closed this unit. They closed the door. They put a sign on the door.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you saw that or not.
We got it all to ourselves.
Well,
That's
yeah,
right.
until they run us out.
Oh wow, look at this. All right, well I'm here with Bob, and I've been waiting for over a year to do this interview. My buddy Davin, get over here. He
Not too close.
that's right. It's Davin, and he's a good buddy of mine from Homer, Alaska, and he worked with Bob for years. And Bob has one of the most amazing Sasquatch stories I've ever heard. So now this is a story from Georgia?
Yes.
Okay, well, just tell us where you grew up and kind of some of the story. Now, it sounds like your family went to war with these Bigfoot.
That's exactly what happened. About 19, I want to say between 25 and 30. Mm-hmm. My dad was 10 years old. His little brother was 5. And his mother was the meanest woman that didn't ride a broom. She was just feisty, and she's only like 5'1".
And what town is this near?
Glenville, Georgia.
Glenville, Georgia.
Now this is way back before there was a Fort Stewart, so that's why I'm thinking maybe that the Bigfoot aren't going to military bases, but the military bases are going where the Bigfoot are.
That's a cool
If
theory.
you think about that concept,
Yeah.
it makes more sense. Because there was no Fort Stewart before 1938 or something like that.
Right.
Some few years after this incident, and I know it was known around because everybody was talking about it.
So were the Bigfoot messing with them and they finally got fed up and tried to hunt them, or what happened?
Well, the incident was told to me in 1963 or 4. That would have been around my 10th birthday in 63 in Florida. My family all moved to Florida because the base that they set up, the Army camp, they called it then, displaced them. They took the land and they were sent to Florida. They given land at LaBelle, Florida, down around Lake Okeechobee.
Okay.
So it was similar land, but that's not relative to what happened. But the thing is that my family ended up in Florida. And the husband, my grandfather, he was running the farm there, and he was cutting cross ties for the railroad system. And he had, my dad was just 10 years old, but he had him on the end of a saw, cross-cutting logs and then splitting them with an axe and making these cross ties.
Yeah.
So they would get like $5 a piece or whatever they could get. Sometimes it was $2, depending on, I guess it was a market thing, but anyway, they were getting paid next to nothing to work their tails off. So grandfather was gone for the day, working in the fields or whatever. Early in the morning, the 2 children that were the 5 and 10-year-old were there, and they were on each side of the breakfast table, and the breakfast table was a breezeway because back then they built houses, they put the kitchen separate from the sleeping, and they had a breezeway. Well, they walled that up and put 2 windows there so that they'd have more room because they were having more kids. So anyway, they were there, the window burst open, and it's not a glass window, it's a wooden batten type window, and it bursts open, and a long hairy arm comes in, goes around my uncle who was 5 years old, and snatches him toward the window My dad sees what's happening, comes across the table, grabs him with both arms around the waist, and he's wedged against under the wall. It's top of the kid's halfway out the window. There's this hairy creature there, and my grandmother's coming with the broom because they're making such a racket. She thought they were physically fighting each other.
Yeah.
And that would be the natural assumption, you know, two boys. Anyway, when she gets to the door area, you know, where she enters the room, she sees immediately it's what they call a booger, a swamp booger or a booger. And she raises her broom handle and the thing lets go, and of course it's gone in a half second, it's gone. But my dad is still holding my uncle at that time. And they get all sorted out, straightened up and everything. They go out and the dog is under the house. They had a dog that said would tackle a wild boar or anything, just jump it and go, not afraid of anything. That dog was cowered under the house, and my grandmother said that dog stayed there for 3 days. The kids had to drag water to the dog to keep it alive.
Wow.
And he would not come out for anything.
Now, was it a big armed? Was it like, what would you ask? Did they say it was probably 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall?
Well, my uncle said, now he's 5 years old. He said that he wanted to fight that thing like my dad was fighting that thing. And he said the only thing he could reach was the thumb of this thing was under his chin. So he bit the thing on the thumb. And a 5-year-old is a nasty bite, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the window, if you know anything about living in a swamp, the first thing you got to know is they don't put anything on the ground. It'll rot. It won't last. And they'll put a house on fat lighter pylons they make out of trees. You know, big, huge, natural, what do you call it, old growth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the center part of that tree is what they call fat lighter. It's got so much resin in it. It's like a preserved pole, and it won't rot. In fact, you can't hardly cut it with a chainsaw or anything. So the house is up at least 4 feet because of swamp water, you know, raising water, and springtime there floods and stuff.
4 feet.
So from the ground, 4 feet to the bottom of the structure,
Okay.
which is probably 15 to 16 inches with the thickness of the floor. And then from there up another 3 feet to the bottom of the window.
Ooh.
So how high is that? 4 and 15 inches?
That's 8 feet.
It's 8 or 8.5 feet.
Wow.
So this thing apparently, from my grandmother's description, she could see the top of the chest and the arm. So at the armpit, this thing is 8.5 feet.
Wow. So
So-
that's 10, 12 feet. So this happened, and what led, was your dad just like, we're going to war with these things after that? Or did he just start hunting them or going out trying to shoot them?
No. I said went to war with them because they physically fought it right there in their house.
right.
That's all I meant.
Okay.
No, they weren't going out in the woods hunting for these things. By no
Oh,
means were they going
okay.
out in the woods anywhere except to work,
Right.
cut down trees and such.
Yeah.
But I can just imagine that thing being pissed about having their trees cut down because they
Yeah.
were cutting trees, you know, 4 or 5 a day and moving progressively away from the house, but they were cutting
Yeah.
trees.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing there, and that's how they were making their living.
Did they have more sightings of them? Because you had mentioned there was like a family of them or a group of them.
Well, I didn't hear any other stories by my grandmother because sometime in the late 60s, early 70s, she passed away. But the thing is, I heard this when I was a 10-year-old kid at my uncle's house in Florida. And that's the first I knew about it. But this was actually before the Gimlin, Patterson Gimlin film.
Yeah.
So when that thing come on, the Gimlin film, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, well, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and it made it more real to me
And you,
But I'm just a kid. You got to
Right.
keep that in mind. I'm only 10 years old when I'm hearing this story.
yeah,
And my uncle is saying words like, you better believe it, because he bit the thing.
right,
So you can't get more physical than something to bite.
yeah,
I mean, realistically thinking, yeah, this thing is alive. It's a real thing. It's not, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not a ghost. It's there.
and you had a theory that it's more of a type of person
Right.
than animal. What makes you believe that?
Well, if you think about it, if it were a bear in that swamp
Yeah.
and it snatched a kid, the first thing it would do is bite it on the back of the neck and kill it.
Right,
But this thing had the sense to reach around and try to take the thing
Right.
without killing it and without hurting it.
right,
So that tells me two things. One, maybe that was a female that was doing that reaching.
yeah,
And the other thing is, yeah, it's more human than animal.
yeah,
Because an animal, like I said, would just bite it on the neck and kill it.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's what I think. But once I'm aware of this, I'm starting to have issues with my hunting.
right,
I'm 15 years old. I'm not really legally old enough to hunt with a rifle by myself in Georgia.
yeah,
Of course, I don't know whether the safety aspect, parental or whatever. The reason was I was allowed to hunt with a bow and arrow.
okay. Makes sense.
You want to be out there with one of these things in front of you
Oh.
with a sharp stick.
No,
No, I'd rather have a rifle.
yeah,
I'm just saying, this is when it manifested to me again.
yeah,
This thing came about. I went hunting for bow season early, and it's hot. And I make my way to a point of land that's kind of juts out. There was an old well and some fence pushed up, and they farmed around it instead of trying to clean it up.
yeah,
Afraid that, one day it would bleed open and the tractor tire would go in and, it'd just be a big mess. So they left this to grow wild, and it's full of sweet gum. I don't know if you're familiar with that tree, but it's kind of like a cottonwood.
Okay.
And it grows fast, and it has these little balls and makes all kind of a mess. But in the fall of the year, the leaves change pretty early on the sweet gum. They turn bright yellow.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there on a bucket. I ease in so quiet. I move in, and I'm expecting the deer to come out in the open field, and I'm facing west, so I'm going to be silhouetting the deer with the sunset, and I might get a decent shot, So I'm sitting there, and it's starting to get dark, and I'm telling you, it wasn't natural. I didn't feel right. I felt like something was there.
yeah,
Like I've already walked up on this bobcat, and it's just laying there waiting for me to move. And it just tearing me up on the inside. And I'm sitting there, well, I'm not going to be able to kill a deer like this. I'm not going to be able to draw the bow.
yeah,
So I stand up real slow and look real good in the field to make sure there's no deer out there. So my way home is back. So I've got to cut through this narrow spit of trees, and then I'll pop out the other side on the other, the rest of the field, cut across the field, and then down into the wood line, and then up to the house. I'm only about, I don't know, quarter mile from the house at the most. So when I stand up, I'm trying to decide, I'm going to go through here, so I need to take that arrow and hold it instead of having it strung to the
Yeah.
bow, because it's going to be awkward, and it's losing light pretty fast, and I'm going through some thick stuff. So I ease through that ever so, thinking that if I pop out the other side and there's a deer there, maybe I can shoot him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking hunting,
yeah,
and I'm almost to the point where I'm just about to push out through the tree limbs, small trees and limbs and such.
yeah,
I'm just about to push through, and then I hear this god-awful scream. I've been screamed at by bobcats. And the thing that got me, I went frozen solid. I could not move a leg. I couldn't raise or lower the bow. I couldn't do anything but stand there. And the thing that bothered me more than I couldn't move, it wasn't down on my feet where the noise came from. It was up even with my head. And this noise came right through the tree at me, and it literally shook me.
And it kind of paralyzed you?
Yeah, I was physically unable to move.
Whoa.
I'm 15 years old.
Yeah.
I've got a bow with a Ben Pearson broadhead on it that probably wasn't nearly sharp as it should have been. And I'm standing there, and I'm a quarter mile from the house. I got to cross a field. I got to go down in the woods and then back up to the house. And I can't make my legs move. I can't move.
Man.
If you've never done anything like that or been that way,
Yeah.
it's impossible to describe how afraid you are.
Yeah.
I've never been that scared.
I was so scared I couldn't even pee on myself. That's how bad it was. It was frightening beyond belief. So I stand there and I'm noticing water dripping off my nose. I'm in a cold sweat. I'm dripping water. Water's flowing down my arms and stuff. Sweat.
Yeah.
And here I stand, and I said, I got to go through that, to the opening. I got to go that way. There's only one way home. So after about a minute, it couldn't have been more than a minute because, you know, it was just a minute.
Yeah.
Some people it seemed like 5 minutes, but yeah, it seemed like that, but I know it wasn't more than a minute. I take the bow and I push. I can move a little bit. I can push the limb and I can see a little bit. It's legally dark. So I just brave up and push out there onto the field and look around. There's nothing to see. All the way across the field, all the way down to the wood line, not a thing in the world in front of me. No track, no nothing I could see. Of course, I didn't have a flashlight or anything.
Yeah.
And it was failing light, but it was just there.
Wow.
Now, this was 200 miles west of where my father and uncle had the encounter with,
Still in Georgia.
still in Georgia,
Wow.
other side of the state. Completely different terrain. Peanut fields on, you know, like fields of flat plains and stuff.
Yeah.
Very little water, but high and dry. Not a swamp type thing. And if you're thinking they're in the swamp, and then something screamed at you, you don't really put the two things together.
So it was really tall once again because that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was even with you. You were in a tree stand or
No, I was standing on this raised piece of dirt because they pushed things up there, and it was just maybe 2 feet of mound, and there were logs crisscrossed that pushed in there. So what I was standing on was just dirt. So
okay.
I don't know. I guess I was 6 foot by then, pretty close to it. So my head must have been 7, 8 feet off the ground. But this thing was right eye to eye, kind of. It was there. I mean, you know about sound, and you can
Yeah.
tell if something's above you, you
Yeah.
know. But if it's right in your face, then you got to wonder. That's not a bobcat.
Yeah.
That's not a bobcat with a step ladder.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, that's when I was 15. I continued to hunt, but I changed my method.
Yeah.
I started carrying an old, what they call a German Mauser,
Yeah.
a 98.
Good.
98 Mauser is about the same as a 30-06,
Right.
and it was a healthy gun to shoot for a kid as slender as I was. But I shot it, and I was proficient with it
Okay.
because I wasn't going to be out there. And I never thought that it was a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I just knew it was tall. Whatever it was, either it could fly or something.
Yeah.
But I never really figured out what it could have been until, like, now
Right.
I'm
Thinking about it.
I'm well schooled because things happen later. The same general area. That's where I went to high school, in that area near Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
So, a town called Richland, Georgia. And this was on the east side of Richland. I bought some property just on the north side of Richland, and I built me a cabin there in a small lake. And I had the rights to hunt 180 acres adjoining my 10-acre house and lot. So that was the only person allowed to hunt there for over 35 years. It was in the family, so it was a family, and nobody hunted. They were all too old to hunt then. So I took the property over, and I brought a few guys up. I was working in Florida for the power company then, and I built this house and stuff as a retirement kind of retreat. So I'd have a place to hunt, because I knew that, property was getting smaller and smaller to hunt on.
Yeah.
People are leasing land and tying it all up and stuff like that. So this was back in the 90s. And I started hunting that land. And like I said, I had a few friends come up from Florida. And I always felt a little uneasy about that place.
Yeah.
And I saw a black, well, kind of a charcoal gray panther there one time.
Oh, wow.
And I'd seen them within a few miles of that property, especially along this stream of water that went from lake to lake to lake. Every couple of miles there was a lake, and beavers were in between, and it was just a nasty place, and nobody could hunt there. Nobody was allowed in there. The guy that owned it didn't let anybody hunt. So we were down there swimming in one of those lakes one time, jumping off the pine tree from the road into the lake, and I swam to the shore and crawled up and was going to go up the tree again to jump again. And when I got up on the road, I looked down, something caught my eye, some movement. I turned and looked, and this panther jumped out into the center of the road, dirt road, and standing there looking right at me, and he's landing as I'm looking. So we eyeball to eyeball, and he's about 50 yards, maybe 40 yards, close, but not that close.
Yeah.
So he turns about face and springs from there back into the woods. Now he's jumping 20 feet. He's a big cat.
Yeah.
And so I know that's a panther, and I've seen, maybe it's the same cat, but if you follow that stream up, it comes out from just across the highway from my property.
Yeah.
So same base, Anyway, I've seen the cat. Then one of the guys from Florida, he comes up and says, "Me and my dad aren't hunting with you no more." I said, "What did I do?" He said, "No, not you." He said, "My dad saw something. He didn't know what it was. I went down there in the woods and I was looking at a cat, and the cat was above my waist. He was a big black cat." I said, "It was a panther. I've seen him before." He said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, I never thought you'd be able to see him. I never thought about it." But it was kind of funny that way that they were going to let that cat run them off from hunting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a rifle, come on. It's only a cat.
Right.
Yeah, like a alligator is only a lizard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Man.
so my friends, they said they'd always felt uneasy, and I said, "Well, I feel that way too, but I don't think it's a cat. I don't think that's what it is." He said, "What do you think it is?" I said, "I think it's a Bigfoot." Oh, they all laughed, and said, "You're an idiot," and all this crap.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them I knew. I mean, I really knew.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, and they can't imagine it being real. But once you know the truth,
Yeah.
you got to have faith in your family. And I don't think my grandmother would tell me a story like that. Yeah. Anyway,